This week's Torah reading is called Toldot, which means Chronicles. And basically, the Torah tells all the stories about Itzchak, the second of the forefathers of the Jewish people. Now, there's an intriguing story over here, and we know that the Torah is not just a book of stories, history either, it's a book of lessons. And we have to find what's the lesson, what's the message over here in this story. The story talks about basically 3 wells of water, where the herdsmen of Itzchak, the people of Itzchak, used to go around the land and dig wells of water, because in the desert you need water and so on. Now, Itzchak actually dug the same wells that Avram, his father, dug, but the Plishtim, they covered those wells and so on. So Itzchak again dug those wells. Now we find that the first time that the people of Itzchak found a well of water, and they were so happy about the water, came the herdsmen of Gerar, another people, another nation over there, and they fought for the water. The water is ours, back and forth. And that's why the name of this well was called Itzchak. Itzchak means a quarrel, a fight. Then the people of Itzchak found another well. And again, there was a fight about this well and so on, back and forth with the people of Gerar. And they called this well Sitna, which means hatred, basically. Then they found another well of water, and this time there was no fight about the well of water, and it was called Rechoives, which means ample, and which means a lot of energy, a lot of wellness, and so on, well-being. And that's the whole story. 3 wells, 3 names. The first name means quarrel, the second name means hatred, and the third name means all kinds of amplitude. Many things, many blessings. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, has a commentary on the Torah. His commentary is very deep and interesting, and he brings many ideas related to Jewish mysticism. But in this particular case, the Ramban asks a very simple question. What do we care about this story? What's the whole point of the story? That Yitzchak dug wells and his father also did it. We need to know the names of these wells. Who cares? We don't even know where the wells are right now. So what difference does it make for us? And the Ramban explains that our sages do say that these 3 wells actually correspond to the 3 Batei Mikdash, the 3 temples that the Jewish people built in Yerushalayim, in the Har HaBayis, in the Temple Mount, and so on. And through the names of these wells, as they are written in the Torah, we can understand the stories of these 3 temples, and not just within the Jewish people, what happened with them, rather what happened with the other nations around the Jewish people, and what's going to be at the end, so to speak, when Mashiach will come speedily in our days. And the Ramban explains the following idea. First well was called Itzchak, which means a fight. And this fight was between the people of Gerar and Itzchak, and this represents within the Jewish people in the age, in the times of the first temple, there was a terrible fight, not within the Jewish people themselves, not the people were fighting, rather the kingship were fighting. The king of Yehuda, which was the south of the land of Israel, was fighting basically the king of Israel, which was the north, and was back and forth between the highest levels of the Jewish people, their kings. They were fighting. And that caused the destruction of the first temple. This hatred and fight among the heads, so to speak, of the Jewish people, that's what caused the destruction of the first temple. And furthermore, the fight between them, their heads, that caused other nations to come and fight with the Jewish people in order to destroy the first temple. Actually, the first temple was destroyed by Babel, not the Jewish people themselves. They didn't destroy it. Somebody else, other nations destroyed it. And, in parentheses, of course, the Ramban doesn't say this. It's very interesting. At the point that in the land of Israel there was a terrible argument between the lefties and the righties and this and that, October the 7th happened. And the other nations of the world that hate us, they did their thing and so on, and killed so many people, etc. Let's close parentheses. Now, let's move on to the second temple. The second temple is called Sitna. Sitna comes from the word hatred. In English, in Hebrew, it's in English, hatred. Now, What's this hatred all about? Our sages say in the Talmud that the reason why the second temple was destroyed is, in Hebrew, sinas chinam, free hatred. Hatred for nothing. I just hate you. It doesn't really have a reason why, just hate you. And this hatred was among the people themselves. In the times of the first temple, it was the kings that were fighting. Now the people themselves were fighting between themselves. They hated themselves just because of hatred. And this caused also the destruction of the second temple where the Romans came and so on, and they destroyed the second temple. By the third well that Itzchak dug, it was called Rechoives. Rechoives means a lot, amplitude, like space. That's what Rechoives means. And we don't find in the story, in the Torah, that the third well was a fight about it. Nobody fought about it. So there was no fight. That means that the third temple is going to be an eternal temple. There's a whole argument between our sages whether it's going to come down, built from the heavens, or Mashiach will build it together with a lot of people. Of course, just one person can't do it by himself. And there's a whole way of understanding. These two opinions actually are saying the same thing, because people are going to build it down here, and then the spirit, so to speak, in the Zohar is called Yerushalayim Shel Maila. The heavenly expression of the temple is going to come down into this temple. So both things are going to happen at the same time. Both things are real, so to speak. Physical construction, spiritual construction that God is going to take care of. But the point is that there's not going to be any fights. There's not going to be any problems. So only when we ourselves, by ourselves, we learn to live without fighting quarrels, without hatred and so on, that's going to bring the third temple. And the Ramban ends up his commentary in a very interesting note. Because in the first two temples, the other nations, because we were fighting between ourselves, the other nations fought with the Jewish people. But in the third temple, where there's not going to be a fight within the Jewish people themselves, that's going to cause that the other nations are also going to come to the third temple, and we are going to serve. This is the way the Ramban ends up his commentary in explanation on this, so to speak, not important story of the wells and so on. The Ramban finishes saying that other nations are going to come, and together with the Jewish people, we are going, everybody serve God shoulder by shoulder.